Here at Bethlem Museum of the Mind, we've been highlighting the work of 4 artists whose work appears in our collections and whose reputations deserve to be greater than they are at the moment. And the first of the big 4, as we're calling them, is Bryan Charnley, and we're promoting UK sales of this book, Art and Adversity, which tells the story of his life and contains dozens of fine reproductions of his artwork. Just use the link below to make your order. Well, there's 1 week to go before we move on to artist number 2, but for now we're staying with Bryan Charnley. And as Bryan's brother James expresses it in the book, Art and Adversity, Bryan's is not the work of a madman, but rather a commentary on madness. Whatever was meant by that term madness, it's clear that Bryan Charnley's work is relatable across a wide spectrum of human experience. And it doesn't get any more relatable than the picture I'm standing alongside on display here in the museum, entitled Morning Flight. There is an inside-outside dialectic taking place in this picture, which should be familiar to anyone with recent experience of social isolation, quarantine or lockdown, or in other words, pretty much all of us. And there is also an uncanny resemblance between this picture and one which was painted by the Canadian artist William Karelek in 1968, entitled Reminiscences of Youth, which I have here in reproduction in an exhibition catalogue. Now, I say that the resemblance is uncanny because although Charnley was well acquainted with and inspired by The Maze by William Karelek, he cannot have ever seen Reminiscences of Youth. It is in a Canadian collection. What James Charnley writes about Morning Flight in Art and Adversity, however, could easily have been written about Karelek's work. He says, outside the window, the colours are pure and cool, having all the associations of space and distance, whereas inside, the warm colours and claustrophobic pattern have contrary associations. The sleeper cannot see outside. He is enclosed in the room with its ugly wallpaper and sparse interior. Yet, in his dreams, the sleeper is able to transform the floating clouds into a flight of swans. Clearly, these words were written about Charnley's picture and not Karelek's, but I hope you can see the connection that I'm drawing between these works, both of which depict a cocoon-like but potentially suffocating interior and an exterior of movement and fluidity. Both pictures can be seen as meditations on the physical and mental constraints that are imposed upon us, as well as the possibilities that remain open to us in everyday life. The walls and the window frames of these works give structure and meaning to the outdoor scenes, both literally and metaphorically. Perhaps the coronavirus shutdown of 2020 will be remembered by many for the attempts we all made to renegotiate a satisfactory balance between structure and freedom for the sake of retaining or regaining our mental well-being. In discussing another one of Bryan Charnley's pictures, James writes that social isolation is a problem of modern living. The individual is isolated in his or her room and can feel hopelessly alienated. This feeling is particularly acute, he says, for people who are out of work, disabled, or who have mental health disorders. Yet, as is elsewhere acknowledged, it is not always the case that outside is to be preferred to inside, and this too has a resonance for those of us who have experienced lockdown. What the indoor environment may lack in vitality and liberty, it can sometimes, not always, but sometimes make up for in predictability and safety. Well, these videos have done no more than scratch the surface of Bryan Charnley's genius and the ability of his art to prompt deep reflection on issues of mental health and well-being. $19.95 is all you need to take this exploration further, so if you live in the UK, use the link at the bottom of the screen to purchase a copy of Art and Adversity. Whether or not you decide to buy the book, there is one other thing I'd be glad if you would consider doing. Bethlem Museum of the Mind would like to know what you've made of these video reflections. So at the bottom of the screen now, there is a link to a short online survey to capture your thoughts about them. As a thank you for submitting feedback, we will send a copy of a booklet that accompanied the museum's 2015 Bryan Charnley exhibition to everyone who supplies their postal address along with their responses. It's a very simple process, but it's one that will help us evaluate the impact of what we're doing. Thank you for watching, and keep tuned in to the museum's YouTube channel and social media, because in a week's time we'll release content about the second major artist we wish to highlight. Until then, goodbye and take good care.